Hi everyone, it's Attorney Aaron from Indiana. I've got another video of court for you today. Let's get started.
All right, so we definitely I need to hear something explaining that bond.
And Judge, I will say, I think I had indicated that Mr. Prothero and I had been talking about Mr. Connolly's case. And one of the reasons that I agreed to the 75,000 with the GPS and the curfew, Mr. Prothero, I know his witness. I don't know if she's the wife or girlfriend, but I know she, and I'll let him go more in detail. But I know she and the defendant have, I think, 5 children together. I think she has medical issues as well as Mr. Conley. And so I went on and agreed to the 75 based on those that medical information that Mr. Prothero provided, because Mr. Conley does have a history, but I'll let him go into the different medical issues with the witness. Like I said, I know that she has children with Mr. Conley, but I'm not sure if it's a wife or a girlfriend.
All right, so let's talk about this. Hold on a second. Let's talk about, before you talk about medical issues or his, his family, what is his criminal history?
So I'm showing with his GCIC, his serious offenses come out of Miami-Dade County, beginning in 2008, a grand theft. And I believe, and Mr. Prothero and I were talking, that the grand theft certainly may have been reduced. But what I was showing was a grand theft. In 2008, there was also an armed robbery. And Mr. Prothero indicated his client, I think he said that may have been reduced as well.
When was that armed robbery?
In 2008.
All right.
Tampering with evidence was also part of that case. And after that,
hold on one second. We need to get I don't see that I think Mr. Conley should be at the podium there. One second.
Okay.
How you doing, y'all?
I'm well. How are you today, Mr. Conley?
Making it.
All right. So let me just tell you where we are right now, sir. Your attorney, Mr. Prothero, and the DA, Attorney Freeman, have worked out or presented to me a consent bond. I'm not really certain if I'm going to sign off on that consent bond. I want to hear a little bit more about your history. I understand that what Ms. Freeman was explaining to me just now is that your criminal history from Miami-Dade County included a grand theft in 2008, an armed robbery in 2008. The understanding of the state at this point is that both of those offenses may have been reduced to something else. I don't have that information that they were reduced, but I just wanted to make sure that you're caught up with everything that we're talking about, because this involves you. Okay, Mr. Conley. And so, Attorney Freeman, you were talking about the grand theft from 2008, the armed robbery in 2008, and tampering. I stopped you at the tampering with evidence because I looked and I didn't see Mr. Conley.
After that, there were numerous probation violations for those cases. And then we get to Georgia. He had,
when did Mr. Conley move to Georgia?
He came to Georgia in 2013. 2013, Judge.
Okay. All right. So what's happened since he moved to Georgia?
So in Georgia in 2013, he had a driving without a license. 2014, an obstruction. In 2015, a driving with no license. In 2015, a possession of marijuana less than an ounce. And in 2016, an obstruction and battery family violence. And then we have the present case.
And so, Attorney Prothero, to have this type of history, this helps me to put things in perspective, to understand what has been going on or had been going on with your client. And in terms of the person that you say is in his life right now, you're indicating that he has, so now let me hear from you and maybe I can fill in the blanks that his criminal history may not be able to demonstrate or to.
Here, as I see very often in court, the judges are very concerned with criminal history of a client. Also very concerned with flight risk. Is the client going to show up for court, any future court dates? And then are they a danger to themselves or others? But all judges are concerned with prior criminal history.
Illuminate to the court.
Thank you, Judge. I'm trying to pull up some information from the Florida system because I do have a printout here, and it's generally not set up similar to how we look at GCICs here. It's my understanding that Mr. Conley had a few cases in Miami, and I think the state has articulated most of those cases. It's my understanding that they were all on probation. It's my understanding that these cases stem from 2006 through 2008. It's my understanding that the armed robbery case was reduced down to a theft case. It would not be treated as an armed robbery in Georgia. Since he's come to at the Atlanta area, he's had a few misdemeanor arrests, but no felonies. He is currently in a committed relationship with the witness that I had available to testify, Luz Rosa Torres. Mr. Conley, and let me just start at the top. Mr. Conley's 32 years old, Your Honor. He has completed 1 year of college. He arrived in the Atlanta area in 2013. He and Ms. Torres are raising 5 children together, ages ranging from 17 years old down to 9 years old. Mr. Conley also has other family in the area. His mother, Cambrell Conley, is in the area. He has a brother, Cornelius Conley, who is in the area. So his family is here. So I want to first establish that he does have ties to the Atlanta area. He's working now doing construction work as well as some general labor work. His brother has a construction company that he works with, as well as Mr. Conley was previously employed with United Parcel Service. And I think at the time of this alleged incident, he was working at United Parcel Service there. As far as the medical issues that Ms. Freeman was alluding to, Mr. Conley himself has bronchitis. He does use a nebulizer. He does not use a daily inhaler, but he does use a nebulizer. And I think the use of that nebulizer really depends on the environment that he's in. Case in point, some jobs have caused him to have to use the nebulizer more regularly than other jobs. And so, of course, the conditions in the jail, in particular with the coronavirus that's currently going around, is a concern for us with his respiratory problems. His fiance, Ms. Rosa Torres, or Luz Torres, has seizures. She has grand mal seizures, and those seizures are activated by external stressors, including light, emotional stress, and pain. And she's indicated to me that Mr. Conley is her caregiver, so that when she has her seizures, he's the one that will usually provide her with her medicine. He's the one that will basically keep her from, as you understand with a grand mal seizure, sometimes the seizures do cause the victim to, swallow their tongue and that type of thing. So Mr. Conley has always been the one there to provide the assistance for her and to take care of the children while she's recuperating during or following a seizure. The reason that we're asking, for a bond in this case, Judge, I think I've talked to you before, mentioned that Ms. Torres would normally or would be willing to provide information about their whereabouts and what was going on the day of the alleged incident. But just for purposes of this bond, I do understand my client has some history. I would ask the court to focus on the fact that the criminal history that's, I think, most damaging to my client are the cases before he came to Georgia. He has not had a felony arrest other than this one since 2008. Those cases were all on probation, and the probation was completed. My client has had a few misdemeanor arrests. I think the battery that Ms. Freeman mentioned here that occurred in Atlanta was with Ms. Torres, and I believe that those charges were eventually dismissed. So he was arrested for family violence or domestic for battery, family violence battery, but those charges were dismissed. He and Ms. Torres are still together. She's asking, and his family is asking, that he be allowed to receive a bond so he can come home and continue to assist her in raising the children and providing the assistance to her and their household that he's been providing all along. My client, I've spoken to him several times. He's made a point of telling me that he's made great efforts to turn his life around. So, and that was one of the reasons why he left Florida, to remove himself from the environment that he was in down there. I think being in Georgia has been very helpful for him. And we do recognize there have been some misdemeanor arrests, but nowhere near the same level of criminal exposure that he had when he was in Florida. And if the court has any questions, I'd be happy to try to give you whatever information I can provide on those four.
Here, the defense attorney did a great job at articulating prior criminal history, fleshing that out to tell what exactly how the cases were disposed of. Obviously, armed robbery down to theft is a huge reduction. Also, the attorney did a great job establishing ties to the Atlanta area, which is a very always a concern to the court that they're connected to the area and not a flight risk. Attorney did a great job also talking about medical issues with both the defendant and his fiance. Well done.
For cases.
Right. So Mr. Conley, I'm going to direct this to you because I don't like talking about people. I like talking to people. Sir, it looks like you've been given a second chance. I listen to the history in terms of how old you were when these arrests happened in Miami. Seems like you might have been about 20 years old or so young.
Yes,
You were given another opportunity to turn life around. And I don't know how long you and Miss Torres have been together. I don't know how many of those children are yours. I'm going to ask your client how many of those children are his biological children, Attorney Prothro.
biological, two of them are mine, and the other two of hers is not mine. But I also have another son, and say he stays in Miami. So actually, I have five. I call 5 kids because they're my step kids, but I've been raising them.
And then the 2 children that you and Miss Torres have together, how old are they?
6 and 9.
So you moved to Atlanta and you're able to start a new life, start a whole new chapter in your life. I understand that your brother has a construction company. Is it?
Yes, ma'am.
And so there have been opportunities that have been presented to you that don't speak to the necessity for you to get involved in anything that lands you where you are now.
Yes.
When you were here on Wednesday and we had your preliminary hearing on Wednesday, I noticed that your face was covered up, as is everyone else's face, but it just struck me that the situation that we're all in right now, no one anticipated this. And in life, every single decision that you have to make, sir, it needs to be made based on you don't know what tomorrow holds. Every decision, I'm not saying that you're guilty of this crime. Certainly that is something that your attorney is fighting very hard, working very hard for. Your Attorney Prothro is working very hard. I know how hard our DA, Attorney Freeman, works. And for them to have together with a bond this low, this is a low bond for what you've been charged with. This court typically doesn't come under $100,000 for a bond on a trafficking case. Typically does not come under $100,000. Of course, I've made some, I say, revisions to my policy based on, again, the environment that we're in right now. But I want to speak to you, Mr. Conley, because if you indeed have been given a second chance, you've got to make sure every single decision, sir, that you make reflects your awareness of a second chance. When you're given another opportunity to leave a state that was not good for you, clearly wasn't good for you, you move to another state and you find someone that you can start a life with. And I hear what your attorney says. I hear what the DA says about your fiance in terms of her medical condition. I hear what they say about your medical condition. You can't afford to be in this jail. You can't afford to be in this position. You've got family that from the time we were here on Wednesday for your preliminary hearing, your family has been standing by. Your family has been there in your corner. Your family has done everything that they can do. And now I suspect that they're going to come up with some money if I consent to this bond to be in your corner again. My question to you, Mr. Conley, is you have all these people that are fighting for you. We need to make sure that you're fighting for yourself.
Yes, ma'am.
And that means fighting for yourself, in my opinion, is to not make decisions that bring you back here. Fighting for yourself means that your family doesn't have to come up with this money to hire an attorney like Attorney Prothro, who I know is a very good attorney, to come up with this money to post your bond, to show that you indeed are worthy of and working toward this second chance. You don't allow yourself to be in this situation, this position again. You don't allow it, Mr. Conley.
Yes, ma'am.
And you're the only one who can control all of that. And I hear about your fiance, and I'm very familiar with the seizures of a relative that had grand mal seizures. It's two, as a matter of fact. And it's a very frightening thing to go through, to have to support the person and to provide some type of medical assistance to the person. You can't afford, sir, to not be in place. Especially now, this environment that we're in, this season that we're in with this COVID-19, families, your fiance, 5 children, struggling, or 4, she's struggling with those children by herself. The stress of what's going on with you, that is not adding anything to her overall health. Do you think it is?
No, ma'am.
It's not. And you yourself have a breathing challenge. You've got bronchitis, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So then you can't afford to be in that jail, Mr. Connolly.
Yes, ma'am.
Your decisions, I need to be comfortable, sir, that 12 years ago when you left Miami, Florida, or I would say when you left Miami, you came here in 2013. 7 years ago, you came to Atlanta for a new life, a new start, a second chance.
And as you can see, I haven't been in trouble in approximately 4 or 5 years. So I've been actually really trying to change my life and do right. So that's why I haven't been in a situation like this before. For
And
me
I
to
think,
be in a situation like this, it really hurts me too.
and I think what Mr. Conley's referencing, Judge, is his last arrest was in 2016. So that is 4 years without any arrest. And the arrests that have occurred in Georgia have been misdemeanor arrests. I'll let Mr. Conley continue, but I also want to point out, Your Honor, that Ms. Torres and Mr. Conley came to Atlanta together. So this has been a family effort to start their lives over again. So he has come with his 5 children. He's come with Ms. Torres. His mother lives here, and he has other relatives that live here. I've known his family for a while. He has an aunt and a cousin that lives here as well that also live in the Clayton County area. And so I just wanted to point that out, Judge, that he and Ms. Torres did come to Atlanta together to start a new life together. And I think that is, should be, I hope that's illustrative to the court, because I want you to understand that he has a support system, a family that is working around him. As I indicated earlier, Judge, he is working with his brother, and his brother has a construction company. It's my understanding that if and when Mr. Conley does make bond, he will continue to work, so he will be busy. He'll be doing maintenance and construction work once he gets out. So there won't be idle time and idle minds, so to speak, once he's released. But I do want to point out, and I think what he was pointing out to you is that in the past 4 years, there have been no arrests, that being since 2016. And then since he's been here in Georgia for the past 7 years, there have been a few misdemeanor arrests, but nothing like this, Judge, nothing this level.
Many times we see judges ask the defendant if they're on board, they're committed to what the attorney's asking for. This is common, and the judge has done a great job articulating the opportunities that he's been given by his family and then possibly here by the court. Very well spoken, and it seems like the defendant here has done everything he can to put himself in the best light for the judge.
Thank you, Attorney Prothro, and I note that. I note that. Mr. Conley.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm looking at my notes, and of course, today is not probably an adequate summation of your entire life. Tell me about the fact that you finished a year of college.
Yes, ma'am.
Where?
At Miami-Dade Community College.
So that was back when in Miami.
Yes, ma'am.
Had you planned to go back to school?
Yes, ma'am. I actually was going to school to get my HVAC license before this situation occurred.
And is that's online, or I don't imagine how you can do something like that online.
I'll have to go to the facility and take courses. It's like a 3-month course. I had signed up for it, but I never was able to actually make the payment towards it because of this situation here.
You did finish high school.
Yes, ma'am.
You seem like an intelligent man. You do.
Thank you.
I see who you are. Mr. Connolly, there's some people that come to court, and they don't have anything that you have. They don't have a family support system. They don't have education. They don't have the people that depend on them like you do. They don't have what you have. And so when you see they don't have an attorney that you have representing them, they have none of that. You've got all these people. Again, I'm going to circle back to something that I said, and I want you to think about this. All these people in your life that are investing the best of themselves in you and into your life. And so the next chapter of your life, you have to prove to them that the investment that they've made into you is a solid, sound investment. That's what you have to do for the next 18, and I'm looking at your life in 18 stages, I guess, but that's what you have to prove in the next several years of your life. That this system, this criminal justice system, you don't want to get caught up in this. You don't want to get caught up in this. You don't want to be identified by always having to explain what happened in 2008 when you were in Miami. You don't want to have to keep looking back at that point in your life that you have been delivered from.
Yes, ma'am.
$75,000, huh? All right, so what you put in place here is that Mr. Connolly is going to have an ankle monitor. He's going to have a curfew. Everybody's got a curfew nowadays, so
Yeah.
it's not going to be extreme. And he probably does need to stay home anyway. And he must not violate any laws while on bond. Does Mr. Connolly still have any connections to Miami?
When you say connections, Judge, he still has family that lives down there. His grandmother lives in Miami, and I've spoken with her actually, Your Honor. She still lives in Miami, but other than that, I know that his mother, his brother, his fiance, his children, and his aunt, and at least one cousin are all here. And if it wasn't for the judicial emergency in the court being shut down, you will see his family here. I mean, many of his family are watching right now as we're on streaming this on YouTube. So if we were actually in court, Judge, you would see the support that he has. But as far as your question, yes, he does still have some family members in Florida.
You know what, Attorney Prothero?
Yes, ma'am.
I can see the support he has just by looking at him.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at the sum total of his life. I see the support he has. I need to see the support that he has. That's the critical here, is he needs to see the support that he has. It doesn't matter if the support is all here and they're cheering for him, the courtroom, outside the courthouse, on the YouTube channel. He needs to understand that he's got all of this support.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I'm going to agree to this $75,000 bond. Attorney Prothero, you've done a very good job convincing me. Attorney Freeman, I know that you don't go along with anything if you have not thoroughly researched it.
Yes, ma'am.
And the biggest persuasion I have is Mr. Connolly's life itself. So Mr. Connolly, okay now, the second chance you're getting from the court is different than any second chance that you've been given before. Do not give me any reason to regret this second chance and give you this bond. Do not do that, because I want to make sure that anything that happens to you, I'm made aware of.
Yes, ma'am.
All right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, sir. So I need you to be the best. I need your best self right now, Mr. Connolly, not just me. The whole community, your family, everyone that is here needs your best. When you come out of this jail and this environment, your best self is all anyone's going to accept from now on, not anything less. No bad decisions, no sideways decisions, your best self, your best decisions, because you have too many people counting on you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Connolly. All right, I'm going to sign off on this bond.
Thank you, Judge.
Yes, sir.
Well done. This was a refreshing court hearing. Everybody did a great job, both the defense attorney, the defendant, and the prosecutor, well prepared. Great to see a judge listen to the evidence and do what I think is the right thing, giving this young man a chance to get out on bond and defend himself. We'll see you next time.